I then wanted to ask you one more final question, which was related to the midfield. There haven't been too many links with players in the middle of the pitch, which is understandable because with players like Trent leaving, uncertainty about Konate, with Robertson aging, you'd think that there'd be more focus on the defence. And then similarly with the forward line, we expect at least one or two players to leave there, so it's understandable that there'd be more attention on the forward line. But while the current midfield group performed brilliantly last season, is it not a bit risky to potentially ask them to go again with the same group because maybe one of them picks up an injury that keeps them on the sidelines for a prolonged period?
Yeah, it's I kind of want to say that just as things stand at the moment and kind of what you're hearing, you just don't feel like midfield's going to be an area of focus, to be honest. It just doesn't get that feeling at the moment. We will see things change. There's a lot of the window to go. So maybe things will start to ramp up in terms of that and changes there. But yeah, you don't get the feeling it's priority at the moment. I mean, there's spots opening up. Obviously, Harvey Elliott, there's a real chance he goes now. I think he seems to be more accepting of that idea. So looks like a spot's going to open up there. But I spoke to people close to Wataru Endo only a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think he's going to go. I think he's determined to stay despite, and I did not expect that, I'll be honest, because I thought he would maybe be more willing to move on and want to play more football, but he seems to be happy where he is. He wants to play more, yes, but he wants to battle to do that next season at Liverpool and not give up on his dream of playing for Liverpool. So, there's not a spot opening up there. So, you look at the options you've got, and you could easily get more minutes out of Endo, I think, next season, and possibly should do, really, to protect Ryan Gravenberch a bit more. Curtis Jones is a great backup to kind of any of the options. You can at times if you want to, even if they go down the route of my Wirtz idea in the false nine, you can use him as a 10, certainly in home game. Well, you could probably use him as a 10 in any game, really. He's that good, but that's an option in midfield you've added there. So, the talk of some of the players that they get linked to, it's just hard to see where they could guarantee any of them enough minutes really to make it worth the while. So, at the moment, it just doesn't seem to me to be a priority for them, really.
One of the earlier names that was linked to Liverpool was Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart, and I know that was a while ago that he was mentioned. But obviously, with Trent leaving, you'd think that Liverpool might want to try to add players in deep areas who can progress the ball. And I have seen bits of him, and he is excellent on the ball. So do you think that they might want to try to replicate Trent's deep passing ability through the addition of a midfielder?
Well, this is the big question for me. It's probably one of the things I'm most intrigued about going into next season. How do you cover for that lack of deep progression? Because it's all right having Wirtz to bring you progression in advanced areas, but how do you get the ball to him? Van Dijk is very good at that, but Trent got them out of so many holes in terms of that. When teams were pushing onto the midfield too and stopping them progressing the ball, you just bang it out to right back, and all of a sudden you were in the final third. So that's not going to exist. So they do need to find that progression. But you could say that you could add that with Stiller, but what are we doing then? Are we dropping Ryan Gravenberch from the team? And people will say, well, there'll be enough games for them both, but there's not really, because Ryan Gravenberch's not going to want to go from starting 50 games a season to starting 25, and neither is Stiller going to come in and say, I want to start, I'm starting 25 games and think that's enough or worthwhile in moving forward. And similarly, Adam Walton, who's another player that they definitely like, is that going to be enough of a role to sell him, or are we just bombing Ryan Gravenberch to the bench, which to me makes absolutely zero sense when he's got that quality. So I just wonder whether there's going to be kind of the solution to the progression issue is not necessarily maybe going to be a player. And again, I'm speculating here, so I'm not saying this is definitely going to be the case, but whether the solution is going to be different build-up patterns. And we saw, didn't we, at the back end of last season, Ryan Gravenberch dropping in as part of a 3. Maybe they kind of try and do a bit of that, and then you've got those long diags over the top to really advanced almost wing backs then to get you out because you're in a back 3 shape, or just different build up patterns, getting McAllister maybe in some of those deeper roles and using some of his progression, because he is quite good at that, by the way. I don't think it's been a massive tactic for Liverpool to use him really as much in build up as they perhaps could have, but that maybe there's ways around it really other than signing players, because I really struggle to see how you kind of justify a really high-profile midfield signing and put them into the mix there and say that they will get enough games, even with slightly more rotation. I just kind of find that hard to work out. But maybe they'll surprise us and do that regardless. But it doesn't feel like midfield is kind of really high up on the list at the moment.